And welcome into the New England Hockey Journal's RinkWise Podcast. I'm your host, Evan Marinofsky, joined today by the great, the wonderful Patrick Donnelly. Pat, what's up?
Not much. A little disappointed by the Beanpot last night. I was hoping for some more competitive games.
You know, I'm in the same boat. I said this to Mark Diver, who I was sitting next to upstairs. I was like, this feels like when we go to Foxborough during the summer and all the summer league games are blowouts, or you go to a fall showcase and there are a bunch of blowouts. Blowouts stink. I get, like, if you're a fan of BU or BC, it was a nice night, but you want to see some more interesting stuff. And I'm with you. Just kind of games, just over from the jump. It felt like.
Yeah, and the BU one, they were down early, but once they tied it, it was kind of, they never looked back. And then, yeah, the Northeastern BC game was never competitive. Stiga scored on the first shift.
Yeah.
Never competitive. Northeastern had nothing going. BC had the easiest breakouts I've ever seen. 0 layers on the forecheck for Northeastern, poorly timed changes. It was not competitive. Which is a bummer, because usually, even if you get one blowout in the semis, the other ones can usually save it. But it was dragging in the second and third period last night.
Yeah, a whiplash reference.
Hey,
they definitely weren't rushing. It's interesting because this year we get the BCBU championship. First time since 2016. I didn't realize it had been that long.
BU's made 5, now 6 finals since then. They've only won 1, don't mention. And BC has made it once since then. Now their second time, and they lost the only other one.
It's funny to me because one thing, with the Beanpot, obviously was really cool. You had Teddy Stiga scoring, you had Ryan Leonard scoring, you had Shane LaChance scoring. You have all these locals who do really well. Anthony Missouri from Northeastern went to Arlington High School. He played a great game, drew 2 penalties. I thought he was done. That hit by Will Scahan on him, kind of from behind. He challenged it for a major. It didn't go, but I thought, he's done. That's separated shoulder. And he came back out and played the rest of the game, played well. But I find the Beanpot fascinating because there are so many kids at it. I see so many prep kids. I see a lot of younger kids there. And I didn't grow up with the Beanpot being a thing. My parents didn't go to Beanpot schools. I went to UMass. So to me, when I was little, it was never a huge thing. But for parents, or for kids who had parents who went to BC or BU or Northeastern or Harvard, it was a big thing. And you hear it when recruiting comes around. I want to play in the Beanpot. I want to go to a Beanpot school. And it has a power. It has a real power where, we just did that Rivers 09 segment in the New England Hockey Journal TV show. You should go check it out. And at the end, Pandolfo, Meyer, and Sears. Well, Pandolfo obviously said, I want to go to BU because duh. But the other 2, I believe, said, I want to go to Beanpot schools. And that's a thing. And it's been forever. I mean, Teddy Stiga, when he was doing his recruiting, he said, I only want to go to BC, BU, or I think it was Harvard. And poor Northeastern there. I don't think Northeastern was one of the schools. But it's a big thing. And it's big. Now, I wonder how big it grows on the girls' side now, too, with it being at the Garden.
Yeah, one of the things I noticed, being there at the women's Beanpot as a fan the last 2 years, it's just the amount of youth teams that come as groups. You see all the kids in the Wizards jerseys and the Breakers jerseys and the Islanders jerseys and all this and that. At least growing up for me, Beanpot was a big thing, in middle school and high school. Me and my friends would all go every year, and then I would go with my dad. And I've also just now being in the mix a little more, and I think this is 9 straight I've been to, 6 this media. Yeah. Just especially doing photos last night where I'm down on the concourse. The amount of families and little kids you see there is really cool.
It is, and you took some awesome photos. You got some great ones of Ryan Leonard. People should go check that out over on your Twitter. You sent it to me, and I was like, "Holy crap!" You got him with his sticking his tongue out, He
was on one last night in an 8-2 game where he didn't need to be. He was itching for something, and he got it on the score sheet. But I don't know if you saw him and Cam Whitehead mixing it up early in the first.
I did. That was great.
Whitehead kind of tail hooked him with the stick and tripped him up in front, and Leonard turns around, gets in his face like, what? Like, you kind of look like an idiot doing that. If you're going to do that, just deck him or something, get your pound of flesh. But it was
Dude, imagine Ryan Leonard versus Tim Thomas. Oh, a lot of fights there would be if Leonard was on those Canadians teams in the early 2010s. I also think it's interesting, like, Leonard had a breakaway at one point, and Whitehead had his number almost the whole night. And Whitehead made the save, and Leonard kind of just nicked him with his foot, nicked the pad with his foot as he skated by.
Oh, yeah, early.
Trying to get out of the way.
Yeah.
Like, oh, sorry. But a good night. It's great that, so many youth teams go, so many prep kids, high school kids. You see so many different jackets from teams, and I think that's awesome. Well, one thing that was happening as the Beanpot was happening, we're going to talk about boys prep for a little bit here. Berkshire played Avon, 2 top 10 teams, and Berkshire came away with the OT win, 3-2. Berkshire now, I think in projected JSPR, which decides the Elite Eight, they were much lower, and now they are like 9. So they went from being like, I think 14, 15-ish to 9. Avon moves down from like 3 to 7. So Avon now is on the cusp of the Elite Eight, whereas they were a day ago they were in a solid place. And again, Berkshire's one of these teams, man. Like, Luke Matthews scored the OT winner. They got goals from Josh Williams and Duncan Thompson. Kyle Bolduc's been playing great in net. They're beating good teams, and you see this, like, they just beat Salisbury the other day. They earlier this year they took down Kent. They've taken down Taft. To me, this is a team that if they sneak into the Elite Eight, I could see them making some noise based on what they've been doing. And they have, coming up after this Avon game, which was rescheduled, you have Kent, you have Brunswick, and then you have, Frederick Gunn to end the year. But they could find, if they do well against Brunswick and Kent, I do wonder if they sneak into the Elite Eight. Because again, they're a good team. They're old. They're a little bit older. Good in net with Bolduc. Kevin Sepiel's done a great job with that program. Wouldn't shock me if they're in the Elite Eight. So, yeah.
I think it's like the thing we talk about with a lot of these teams where you have those dates circled on the calendar coming up, and Berkshire has 2 of them in the same week, where it's kind of make or break. We're going to find out a lot about you in that stretch. So the other thing you highlighted too was Deerfield.
Deerfield's number 2 right now and project the end of the year. They are number 2. They are after Dexter and above St. Mark's. They're another one that has come on strong this year, and they lost some guys in the offseason. Like, this was, to graduation. I didn't predict that. I knew they'd be good, but I thought, not Elite Eight good, but in and around it potentially. They're now like in a pretty good spot. They've gotten some big wins this year. Kimball Union at the end of January, they beat Cushing. Well, they did have a rough showing at the Floodmar. They did beat Avon and Salisbury right before going. So, like, you have these big wins on your schedule and from early in the year, and they make a big difference come the end of the year. Now, they do have some big ones coming up. They have Phillips Andover on Wednesday, which is probably tonight when you're hearing this. They have Avon February 15th. They have Kent and Westminster to end the year. They have Taft as well. So they have a tough schedule the rest of the way, but USHR predicts that they should run the table in those games. Now, how realistic is that? I don't know. I will say, typically, you can predict how a team is going to fare or do based on how many vets they have, how many seniors, how many older guys do they have. And they have a lot. They're led up front. Justin Tavares, Drew Kiver, Lance Roberts, all seniors, all producing over a point per game. Postgrads, Oliver Dunyek, Ben Patterson. You've got Cam Umla up front as well. Like, you have these older guys, and that matters. On D, Zachary Shahad, Nate Watson, Pierce Lapham, Ryan Diffley, they're all upperclassmen. And then in net, Elliot Lennon's been really good this year. Junior 08, I don't want to say quietly having a good year, but kind of quietly having a really good year. I thought he was great at the Floodmar, even though his team didn't do great. big kid, 6'3", impossible to miss. This team kind of has this team does have the makings of one that can go far. And I think, when you look at the Elite Eight field right now, what you see and what you don't see, when I name these teams, the top 5 in the Elite Eight: Dexter, Deerfield, St. Mark's, Brunswick, Belmont Hill, right? Who's missing from that? KUA, Avon, Cushing, Salisbury. Now, that's projected JSPR for the end of the year. Kimball Union's 6, Avon's 7, Salisbury's 10, and Cushing's 11. So they're in and around it, but they're bubble teams this year. As of now, those are bubble Elite Eight teams. Now, I can't imagine a world in which KUA and Avon don't make it. I have to think Salisbury gets in as well. Cushing, I could see not making it. That's okay. They're a young team. But this, to me, feels like a year where it's not going to be one of the quote-unquote powers that I just mentioned winning it, which has been rare. Dexter's always in it, but, winning the Elite Eight, they haven't had much success with. To me, they're the number one team in the region. They are number one. Like, to me, that is a team, in my opinion, that's on a tier above. They are the number one team in the region. Now, can they be knocked off? Yes. Yes, any number one team, I think, can be, especially down the stretch. As Tim Whitehead said to me once, teenagers are unpredictable, Pat, and they are unpredictable. So you never know.
It's a one game. Anything can happen. If you have a bad night, that's it.
It's over. It's over. And also, again, like Dexter coming up after they played Mount this past weekend in scrimmages. Pomfret's a great team. That's on Wednesday. Phillips Andover's on Saturday. They have Holderness the last game of the year. So they are going to, they do have some tough games coming up. But to me, they're the number one team in the region. And then you have teams like Brunswick and St. Mark's and Deerfield who have had really good seasons. They play cohesively, and I could see them making a run as well. And Belmont Hill was a team we had pegged at the start of the year. So to me, this feels like a year where it's going to be a champ that we haven't seen in a while, which is nice. I don't mind that. Something different, new colors on the ice, all that stuff. But I think this could be a year where we see a different champion crowned. As opposed to the past bunch of years.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of hit it right on the head. Like, top 3 seeds right now: St. Mark's, Dexter, Deerfield. Dexter's in it. They haven't won it, lately. And talk about Thayer at the beginning of the year. They're in the picture right now.
Yep.
Only 3 teams from last year's Elite Eight in the projected field.
Ooh, good call. Yeah, because it's
Brunswick, Avon, and Holderness.
You're right.
Brunswick was a 3 seed last year, Holderness 5, and Avon was 4.
So I'm in the projected final JSPR. I just noticed Holderness is not in it. Holderness is not in it. Playoff seedings wise, Holderness is currently in it right now. So yeah, Holderness is interesting because, again, they're not in the projected end of year JSPR, even in the top 16, but they're in the Elite Eight as of today, February 4th, as we record. So their big games are going to be against Kimball Union. They play them twice over the next month. So that, to me, is going to be their litmus test of whether they get in. Same with Kimball Union, by the way. Kimball Union's got to win both those games, I think, if they want to get in. And then also, and again, Thayer is another team. They're in the projected JSPR for the end of the year. They're also in the Elite Eight as of today. And they've been a great team. But they've got some real tough teams coming up. They have Nobles on Wednesday. They have Governors, which is a team we've not really talked about this year. They are in the mix as well. They've been a big spoiler. They just beat St. Mark's, which helped their standing quite a bit. Thayer also has Bell Hill and Tabor to end the year. They have Milton twice. Milton's been a little bit of a spoiler as well. So I think it's going to be really interesting, obviously, how it pans out. But to me, this is a year where the normal powers are not going to be favored, at least, to win the Elite Eight.
One thing I'd point out with Thayer is their opponent's winning percentage is the highest of anybody currently in the Elite Eight field.
Bingo. There you go. That matters. Like, St. Mark's is under 500. Holderness is at 40 at 42%. Yeah. So I think that's probably why USHR doesn't have them at finishing in the Elite Eight. So yeah, I mean, Thayer's battle tested. Brunswick also has a high opponent winning percentage. Deerfield does. Avon actually does. Andover's a team I need to see a little more of before I, say, oh, they should definitely be in the Elite Eight, because they've got some big ones coming up. They have Dexter on Saturday. They have Kimball Union coming up. They have Cushing. Andover's going to be a team to watch as well, just given how tough their schedule is. And if they can do well with that, I think that gets them in Elite Eight. If they don't and they underperform, I think they're back in that large school field. So that's boys prep, but then girls prep, Pat. Speaking of Andover girls had an interesting kind of week.
They did. I gave them their flowers last Wednesday night. They beat Cushing 4-2. Felt like it should have been a lot more lopsided by the flow of that game. It was a night I was sitting there, Cushing struggling again against another legit Elite Eight team. Andover kind of showing off their muscle with their top six and their defense, which is still ridiculous on paper. And then they go out and they tie BB&N, who's had a really rough stretch, and they lose to Deerfield, who's on a heater. So we talked about schedules and stuff. It's a tough schedule. It's a challenging week. If you ran the table, that'd be crazy. So bound to be bumps along the way, but it is tough. I gave them their flowers, and then they go out and go 0-1-1 on the weekend.
The curse continues. The curse
it was a 1-0 loss at Deerfield, a 2-2 tie with BB&N. And they don't really catch a break this week. They got Tabor, who's playing a great spoiler this year, and New Hampton, who's obviously still formidable and probably going to end up in the small school bracket. So again, not a cakewalk this week either. So they, I think at one point last week, moved up to number 4 in the Elite Eight as of last Wednesday when we were writing that. And right now they're back down to 7. And projected end of season, they're at 3. So
yeah,
quite the pendulum swing for Andover.
It is. It's hard to tell with them. I still think their talent is so good that I don't see them. Like, if they were the 7 seed, that is a pain. Oh my God, nice voice crack by me. That is a pain, though, for right now. That would be Dexter. To play them in the first round. I know the Elite Eight's obviously hard, but that seems like a sleeper. That's like Kimball Union at 7 in the boys. Like, I don't want them in the first round if I'm a top seed.
Yeah, it's like we talked about last week with Nobles, where Nobles is 8 right now. If it started today, they'd be 6th. Projected end of the year, they're 7th, and whoever gets them as a 6th, 7th, 8th seed, it's not going to be a good time. They could easily upend a season for Williston, Dexter, or Loomis, or Andover, or Cushing, whoever that top 3 shakes out to be. So it's I think Andover, kind of like we just said, they could feasibly end up anywhere from probably 3 to 7, and no matter what, they're just going to be a nightmare for whoever they face.
So, and then in the Patsy K. Auden tournament at the top, Deerfield and BB&N are 1 and 2. These are 2 interesting teams because Deerfield is surging. They beat Andover. They seem to be in a spot that they could end up getting inside the Elite Eight, but BB&N falls out. Feels like these teams are going in different directions.
Yeah, Deerfield's unbeaten since December 20th. They're 8-0-2 in that span, I think. They've won 5 straight. Most of them have been quality wins. They tied Exeter, then they beat Choate, who I believe is still in the large school field. Then they beat New Hampton, they beat Andover, shut out Andover. So again, they were a team we had in the mix. They made the Elite Eight last year. They were kind of right around maybe 8 in our rankings at the start of the year. Slipped out. They, tough start to the season. And it was only like 4-3-1 going into the Christmas break or something like that. So it kind of just shows how slim the margins are early in the season. But they've been ripping it off. Like we said, 5 straight wins. And then you look at BB&N since 2025 started, 3 wins. They're 3-5-1, and then you go back to the Harrington, so that makes it 3-7-1. Their last 11. Losses to New Hampton, Loomis. They just lost to Cushing over the weekend. They tied Andover. So I mean, they're quality wins too. They beat Rivers. They beat Groton. Groton's kind of sneaking back into the Elite Eight picture, but it's just not the right time to kind of hit a skid. Especially all kind of clustered together. They have a chance to bounce back this week. Governors and Milton, not necessarily easy outs, but teams they should beat. But then they're just right back into Exeter, St. George's, Nobles, Cushing,
Yep.
Tabor.
Oh my God. I'm looking
Like,
at the schedule too. Holy crap.
like it's not just not good timing to be hitting a skid.
I wonder, so they play Williston March 1st. I wonder if they are if they do well in that gauntlet you just mentioned and they're in a position to get in the Elite Eight. I wonder if that last game against Williston, if that's going to be what's indicative of what tournament that they're in. I
It
don't
could
even know how
be
they can
fair
overcome.
on
I
February
don't know how
28th.
I also don't know how they get into the Elite Eight after this 3-7-1 skid, because that's a lot of losses.
Yeah, unless it's, running the table or well above 500 against these other Elite Eight teams like Nobles, Cushing, Thayer, and Williston. You even have like large school teams in there with Milton and Lawrence and Tabor, and I think Exeter's in the small school right now. So, or vice, I mixed that up. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Other teams that are in tournaments. Yeah, just it could even, like, you said Williston, it could even come down to that Thayer game.
Yep.
Just the like we talked about at the beginning of the season when it comes to like our top 10, how slim the margins can be. But when the top 10 and the rankings that matter with the RPI and the JSPR and R and all that, like the slimmest of margins over the next 3 weeks for BB&N.
Yes. And then you have Groton, which Groton had a little bit of a stretch there. The end of their the holiday tournament, they lose to Cushing. They tie North Yarmouth Academy. They lose to BB&N. They lose to Milton. They've won 5 straight though. As of Tuesday, February 4th, they're 8th in the Elite Eight. So Groton's gotten back in.
Yeah, they're back in the top 10. And good wins over, Rivers, Governors and St. Paul's are 2 tournament caliber teams, in their respective fields. The thing that stands out is 4 straight shutouts. And for a team that had question marks in goal coming into the year, graduating, blanking on the name, but Nora Wilson has really stepped up in net, and she's had a great year. Tina Scalise has been on a tear since coming back from the U18s. So kind of like we talked about with Deerfield, sort of peaking at the right time for Groton.
Yeah, they are. And then you kind of hit that. You mentioned this of sort of there being a clear top 10 teams. Do you feel that way even here in early February?
Yeah, well, I remember like at the beginning of the year when I was like, saying how deep I think this season could be, and there could be like 20 teams that like really are in the hunt, and like that's still kind of the case. But like as of today, it's your top 7 in the Elite Eight, like Williston, Dexter, Loomis, Cushing, Thayer, Nobles, Andover, and then there's, I don't know, 3 more teams that are kind of truly in the mix, like Deerfield, BB&N's still hanging on a little bit. Exeter just fell out over the weekend. They were in it for a while. But then you look like elsewhere, Tabor, like as much as we've kind of said they great spoiler, they're 4th in the large school right now. They're 8-7-1. It's just the math in their favor. I'd say the same thing for Rivers at 10-7-1. Probably Governors at 11-7-2, and New Hampton at 10-5-3 in the small school bracket. So like to me, like you got those top 7 teams, and then it's just kind of been a rotation of the next 2, 3, maybe 4. Which in the other tournaments, it looks like it's going to be a pretty competitive field. But as far as like the Elite Eight teams, and this is the time of year anyways where teams start to separate themselves and that those tiers emerge. But kind of thought like there'd be maybe more in the mix at this point in the year.
I get that. Boys side, I don't think that there's a clear top 10. I think there's a lot of teams that are kind of going in and out of those like 8, 9, 10 spots, and the top 7's change. The top 5's changing a lot. So, so we're in a good spot with prep, and then we moved to MIAA. So boys MIAA. This past weekend, I was at the Ed Burns, the championship, or not the championship, the semifinals, for the top division, which is the Doherty, correct?
Correct.
That's right. Doherty's the top one. I always forget. And it was actually a really good day of hockey. Arlington and Reading continue to be like razor thin margins. Arlington won in double OT, so it goes in the books. as a tie, which would mean the 2 times they played this year, they both tied. And I can tell you the game was close. Like each team dominated one of the first 2 periods, and then the third was back and forth. Overtimes were back and forth, and Arlington came away the winner because they had a power play to start that second OT. So Nolan Russell scores the game winner. Really nice goal. Fakes the Michigan, then goes the other way and puts it in. Again, Arlington's been much better of late. I think Reading's really good. I think Owen Holland's a phenomenal goalie in net. I don't think, like, if they played a 7-game series, it's going to 7 games. They're that close. Like that, though, there's no favorite between those two teams. And then Belmont upset Hingham. And I continue to believe that Belmont, I don't know if we talked about this last week, but I think Belmont is going to be a legitimate force come the tournament. Their top line is that good. Adam Bauer, Leo Packard, Liam Gilderson. I mean, those guys are phenomenal. And Adam Bauer down the middle is a force. I wrote about this on Monday. Just does everything. You're never in a position where you don't notice him when he's out there. And he's used the entire game. And, Gilderson has the high-end skill and Packard can finish and this and that. But Bauer just makes things happen. Like, that's a guy you want on your team when the tournament comes around. And I don't know, like we saw this with Kimble Union last year. When a team has a top line that is just filthy and can do everything, it can be on the ice for half the game, it's hard to beat them. How do you beat them? How many other lines are there in the state that can go out, be deployed, and shut them down while still producing? There aren't many, if any. Like that line is that good. And obviously, yes, you can have an off night and that can end your season. But Belmont, to me, is a team I have circled as one that can make some noise. And then in net, Ethan Bauer for Belmont was phenomenal. Big kid, really good. He looked great last week, too. So Belmont's up there. Like, if I'm ranking my publics, I don't know. Like, Hingham lost. I'd still probably put Hingham 1. But then Belmont, Reading, and Arlington, man, I have no idea. I couldn't begin to rank those 3. And I think all 3 have a legitimate chance of making a legitimate run come the tournament. They're that good.
Yeah, and the thing with Belmont, you mentioned Ethan Bauer, and one of the things we talk about all the time, especially in MIAA, is the goalie. And Ethan Bauer was someone I wrote about last year at the Ed Burns Finals.
That's right.
Stood on his head in that marathon game against, I think it was Norwell or Norwood. Might have been Norwood. And then this year again for you, he could be the X factor for them.
That's the thing. I mean, I think all those teams have goalies who could go on runs. John Snyder with Arlington's been solid. I think Ethan Bauer with Belmont, as I said, has been outstanding. Owen Holland, Mike Caro, like all 4 of those guys could get hot. Like Aiden Emmerich was that guy last year for Winchester. Chris Hannafin for Reading was a guy. Pouliot Porter a couple years ago. Nick Ritchie for Pope. Like, if you get that hot goalie, that wins, because these games in the tournament are not 5-4. They're 2-1. They're 1-0. They're 3-1 with an empty netter. Like, so the goaltending comes into play in a big way. And then, so you have that. So Arlington and Belmont will be the final there. And then Weymouth and Canton are the teams in the Bryn Division final this week. Don't sleep on Weymouth. Weymouth, Division 1, they're a team in the middle. I mentioned Braintree last week who could potentially make some noise. I think Weymouth could make some noise. Now, I've not seen them, but given their results, given what they've been able to do, given their run in this tournament, wouldn't shock me as a middle seed if they can make an upset or 2 come the tournament. And then Canton's a force in Division 2. So, like, that's been normal. I look forward to watching both those teams this week. And then over on the private, Catholic school side, one interesting result I found this week was that BC High beat Xaverian 2-0 last week. And I have a lot of questions about BC High because BC High has so much trouble scoring. And that's been sort of their whole thing all year, where like ultimately they have to beat teams 2-0 or 1-0 or 2-0 with an empty netter or 3-1. But their X factor to me is in net. Drew Karlovitz. Oh my God. Drew Karlovitz. He's a sophomore. He's really good. I saw him over the summer at the Mass High School Hockey Showcase. Like, he is just a great goaltender. And if his team can get him 2 goals a game. Like, I don't think it's crazy to think BC High can go on a run. And the other thing about BC High is they're battle tested. Come the tournament, they've played the gauntlet of teams. They play CM twice and Zavarian and St. John's Prep and St. John's Shrewsbury. They play Arlington. Like, they have a really hard schedule. So they're another team. I'm curious where they rank in the power rankings if the MIAA has updated them. I'm just pulling those up now because I'm very curious as to where BC High ranks. This was updated as of February 4th, and BC High is 5th. So BC High is 5th according to the MIAA power rankings. As of February 4th, Pope Francis, who beat Hingham, by the way, 6-2. My take on Pope Francis being the number 1 team in the region looks phenomenal because they have run the table pretty much. Although Reading did give them a good game. Pope, St. John's Prep, Hingham, who struggled of late but still stays up in that top 3. Catholic Memorial, BC High, Reading, Arlington, Belmont ranks right behind them at 8. Zavarian at 9, and then St. Mary's of Lynn, who's been a great team so far this year, is at 10. So I don't know. I think I said this to the Boston Globe's Cam Carey the other day. He agrees. It's going to be a weird year for the tournament. Weird year of teams in the middle. You have Weymouth at 14. You have St. John's, Shrewsbury down at 12. Braintree's at 19. Like, those are teams I could easily see. Marshfield's 21. 21. So it'll be interesting to see what ends up happening with the tournament. And then, Pat, what's going on in the girls' MIA world? What's up?
Not much has really changed in terms of top of the power rankings and stuff. Like I wrote to you, it's Hingham's world, and we're all just kind of living in it right now. Still, 14-0-0. Might be 15-0-0. I don't know if they've played since the last power rankings, but as of the last power rankings on January 31st, still far and away won. Caroline Doherty, who back in December became all-time leading goal scorer across girls and boys hockey for Hingham. Reached 200 points a couple weeks ago. Just took over the girls' scoring record when she hit 210 points over the weekend. Like, what else can you say?
That's as good as it gets.
Yeah. So, they're clearly far and away one. The thing I would point out in D1, though, is, the opponents' ratings that you look at in the power rankings. NDA has the highest at 1.6. That's double Hingham pretty much. Hingham is 0.8. MC at 1.4. Kind of rounding up here, but what you look at, whether you want sleepers or not, because I think at D1 it's Hingham, then you got NDA, MC. Archie's record doesn't really stand out, but they're super high in the power rankings. They have a really good opponent rating. There's Methuen, Tewksbury, even North Andover. But as far as outside of that, cluster at the top, I'd look at someone like Bishop Fian, who has a pretty high opponent rating out of the next slew of teams. Shrewsbury, Andover too is someone, and Natick especially at 12-3-1, hanging out at the 12th seed. Peabody at 10-2-1, they're the 15th seed, and we talk about the goalie, they have that. And then we keep talking about them. We just can't forget about it. St. Mary's,
Right.
5-8-1, but they're the 18th seed, and out of teams 11 through the rest of the list, they have the highest opponent rating at 1.14. So they played a tough schedule. They're a young team, so look at it when it comes tournament time. The young team can either kind of shrink in the moment or go out and play loose and upset a big seed, which could happen with this team. Other than that, you look at D2, I still think Duxbury is the team to beat. They're number 2 in the power rankings. Westwood's still undefeated at 13-0-1. So it's kind of those two right now. But you look at Duxbury's opponent rating in D2, it's the highest of everybody except Longmeadow, I believe. And Longmeadow's the 24th seed at 1-10. But Duxbury, 11-3-1, they play a great schedule. They play a lot of D1 teams, a lot of contenders on that side. 0.7 opponent rating. Westwood's there. But, outside of them, you're looking at who else can challenge, sort of like we just did with, D1 and like you were looking at with boys. Auburn, 10-1-4 at the 6th seed. Milton's been hanging around all year at 11-3-1. They're at the 8th seed. King Philip, 9-4 at the 15th seed. They're kind of sneaky around there. Canton, too, for a while was really in the mix. I think they kind of had a rough January. They're 7-4-2, but another team that you don't want to ever just anoint anybody. There's still a month to go here, but
Oh boy, here we go.
no. I'm just saying, I wrote to you, it's Duxbury and I think Westwood is the top two, but there's still plenty of teams. Nauset's in there too. Sandwich was a team kind of at the beginning of the year we looked at. Falmouth too. I think I'm not sure if I mentioned them yet, but they made the final last year. They have all this high scoring firepower up front. That could easily just win a track meet with somebody. So yeah, there's still plenty of teams to watch, even though kind of like we talked about prep, where there seems to be kind of a clearer top tier. But as we know, anything can happen.
For over 20 years, Eric Nate's Euro Hockey has been helping hockey players of all ages develop their individual skills and improve on all aspects of their game. Through structured drills and innovative training equipment, Eric Nate's Euro Hockey's intense on-ice instruction challenges each student to be the best at their ability. Find a hockey clinic or summer camp that is right for you today at nateshockey.com. That's NATES hockey.com. Eric Nate's Euro Hockey, train to be the best.
Are you serious about playing your sport in college? Do you need a flexible education that allows you to maintain your practice and competition schedules while also preparing you to succeed at the next level? You should check out the University of Nebraska High School. UNHS is accredited and offers more than 100 online courses, including NCAA-approved courses to protect your academic eligibility. Students could earn a UNHS diploma or take a single course for transfer credit. Courses are college prep, self-paced, and available 24/7, 365. Enroll anytime and take up to a year to complete a course. Visit highschool.nebraska.edu today.
Hey, it's Bobby Moran, Director of Athletics at Thayer Academy. You know what? Experience matters, and Thayer Academy's professional coaching staff understands how to work with each student athlete to help them succeed. Our coaches and faculty are committed to ensuring both 5th to 12th graders feel known, connected, and prepared. This is Thayer's secret sauce, nurturing each student to reach their full potential. Here, success is truly a team sport. Are you ready for your child to take the next step? See what Thayer has to offer at thayer.org. That's THAYER.org.
I was at the Absolute Filth Hockey Wax website the other day, and I was wondering to myself what Absolute Filth's Dragon's Blood smells like. Is it fiery, or maybe it's sweet like the scent of victory after a triple overtime game? Probably a mystical aroma that'll magically make you dominate the ice. Knowing the folks at Absolute Filth, I bet it's part fierce dragon, part subtle smokiness, with a dash of awesomeness jammed into that giant puck of wax. Whatever it is, I'm definitely grabbing some Dragon's Blood for my next game. Gonna slap that wax on my stick and play with fire. Sorry, boys, but the locker room's about to smell like a medieval fantasy tonight. Check out Dragon's Blood and more over at Absolute Filth's website, hockeywax.com. Perfect for the holidays, and they've even got a 2-for-1 sale going on right now with free shipping. Awaken your inner dragon and rule the ice at hockeywax.com.
Before we go, our great producer David Yaz has us with overtime.
Overtime.
Yes, gentlemen. Another edition of Overtime. I can tell you are prepared. I'm just kidding. You're not prepared. That's the whole point of this, is I throw 3 questions at both of our panelists here and see how they fare. You decide, listeners, whether they show the proper hockey acumen or look like goons. 3 questions today. We're playing the Would You Rather version of Overtime. And first question, Evan, we'll start with you. Would you rather be a superstar hockey player, a perennial all-star who never wins a Stanley Cup, or a role player with 3 Stanley Cup championships?
Role player with 3 Stanley Cup championships, because those guys never get forgotten. And you have guys like Joe Thornton, superstar, all-star caliber player, who it's like, but he never won a ring. So I want to be like who would be a good one? Like a Pat Maroon, who has a bunch of cups and everyone know, and yeah, that guy's a winner. That's what I want.
Interesting. How about if you're a Hall of Famer? Different
Ooh.
answer?
I don't know. Cups are big. Like, I think that's the top of it all. So I'd probably, like, Joe Thornton will be a Hall of Famer. But I would still probably take the 3 cups. I want to win.
Okay. Pat, your thoughts?
I would take the 3 cups. You want to win. Like Evan said, you just get remembered. Like, you're either like coming up in a conversation at the bar with your buddies. Oh, remember this guy? Like, and he was a winner. Or, you're at the trade deadline and you're Barclay Goodrow going for a first round pick because you have a reputation, or whatever he went for, some exorbitant price. So people want winners on their teams, and you win them early in your career, you're still going to be getting jobs later in your career because you have that reputation. And the Joe Thornton thing, the Jerome McGinley thing, like, great players, and there's always going to be but that's going to follow you around for the rest of your life, even if you make it in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I tend to think you guys are both spot on this one. It's a team sport. It is literally a team sport. The point of the sport is for the team to win. This question can't be asked in tennis or golf. You either win championships or you don't, but team sports are different. All right. Well done, guys. In fact, you know what? That's the end of overtime. No, I'm just kidding. We move on to question number 2. Question number 2, Pat, you can start with this one. Assuming you're playing in a game that ends in a tie, would you rather record an assist in the game, or would you rather win a fight?
Ooh.
So record an assist. I was going to say goal, but assist makes it a little harder. Would you rather record assist, or would you rather get involved in a Donnybrook and come out as the winner? Now, of course, you're going to serve a major penalty and probably not return to the game. And maybe bloody your nose. But anyway, you win. Pat's you're stewing over this one.
And this is like I wouldn't know the first thing to do if I ever got in a fight. I'll admittedly say I'm soft, but I think I'd rather take the fight because
you're a lover, not a friend.
It's frustrating enough. You at least get your pound of flesh, and you get to say you won.
Yeah. Okay. Evan?
He has a good answer for that. I'll say the assist. Give me the stat. Give me the stat. They look
I'm
at
in the
stat
box
sheet.
score either way.
That's right. That's exactly it.
Yeah.
But I want the stat. I want to help the points per game percentage. So
yeah, it's what I used to say when I coached rec basketball, little league basketball. Essentially, I would tell the players, at least get in the box score. Foul somebody. The guys at the end of the bench. Go and do something. Anyway, all right. Final question, and Evan, you can start with this one. Would you rather be the lead broadcaster, the play-by-play man on national television calling Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Final, or would you rather be an assistant coach on the team that wins the cup?
Ooh, that's an interesting question.
Yeah, I'm pretty proud of that one.
Huh. Damn it. My play-by-play stinks. But
well, in this fantasy, it's good.
If I got a chance, like, you get remembered more as a play-by-play guy. So I'm going to go with that.
Interesting.
The coaches are awesome. They make teams go, but the average fan doesn't know. Whereas the average fan heard my voice the entire game. So I'm going with that.
Wow. Spoken like a journalist. Pat, how about you?
Man, plays hard.
You can be
Pat's
color if you want
Pat's
to.
actually done it and done well with it. That's the thing. I've done it once. I was awful.
I think for hockey, it's particularly hard because you don't know.
Like,
no, I was just going to say, you don't know whether to call all the action or let it unfold with television anyway. And I know Jack Edwards is beloved by some and reviled by others for essentially doing hockey for the blind and, describing. I actually like that, but
I love
prime Jack Edwards was unbelievable.
Yeah.
Like, if you ever go back and watch like those early 2010s, like nothing like it. I would go assistant coach because to fly under the radar. If you lose, or I guess in this situation I'm winning.
I was giving you
If we did lose, nobody would really blame me, unless like my penalty kill stunk, or years like it could springboard me into a head coaching gig. Maybe years later, people like, oh, remember that Bruins team, how great their power play was, which wasn't in 2011. But hey, I was the architect of that power play. If it was really good,
right.
Yeah. Or in
All right.
play-by-play, you're always risking a voice crack like Evan had on the podcast. Or
That's right.
people are hearing my voice. Yeah. Like you could have a timeless call for the wrong reasons. You could have people like listening to you all night being like, this guy stinks.
That's true.
A lot of people say Sean McDonough now famous for the voice crack. And
That's
it's down. Well, I'm glad I split the difference on that last one. But dare we dream, guys? Dare we dream? For this panel, I thought it was at least an argument. I think most the layperson would probably say, "Let me be the assistant coach." But we're in media here, and it's to have that honor to call that action would be very cool. Of course, we're all assuming that we're as good as Al Michaels, and nobody is. Anyway, terrific job on overtime today, guys. And back to you, Evan, to wrap things up.
Yeah, so that's that. That's overtime. We'll have a lot more coverage coming up in the next couple weeks as we lead up to tournament time. But that's RinkWise this week. That's Patrick Donnelly. I'm Evan Baranovsky. RinkWise listeners, we will see you at the ranks.